Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. If you are new to this channel, what I do on here is I talk about different esoteric research subjects, Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, Freemasonry, ceremonial magic, all of these sorts of things. In today's video, I wanted to do a video specifically. I got a comment on my Holy Guardian Angel video. Moon Girl, I believe, was the username. And so this video is basically inspired from her comment. She said that she wanted a video on sigils, specifically angelic sigils. So I'm just going to be talking about what sigils are as a whole, the difference between a sigil and a talisman, from what I understand. My understanding is, I only have so much understanding when it comes to this stuff. I'm still learning myself, and this is a subject which is so massive that you can really take it as far as you want to. There's really like no limit to what you can do with this science. So with that being said, a sigil, we'll start with that, is essentially any entity or archetypal energies, like signature, and it kind of acts as a gateway or a portal for that energy to be streamlined into your consciousness. So it is a type of psychological process. You can view these sigils from the perspective of being actual spirits, whether it's angelic or demonic or whatever else. And then there is the more psychological understanding of how these symbols, and you can even look at like corporate logos and things of that nature, and how they affect the subconscious mind. So you can just view it from a more psychological lens if you wish, studying like Carl Jung and Freud's type of information. So really, one or the other is not really, it's not right or wrong. It's more about what your intentions are and whether or not you're able to tap into that archetypal energy or power and then, commune with it. Or, some people use sigils to serve different purposes or to have a different outcome, or you can use it for healing. There's all sorts of things. I do have some references we're going to get into, but I will hold off on that for a minute. A talisman, from what I understand, is essentially the medium or basically whatever's going to hold the sigil on it. So whether it's a necklace, so if you have a necklace with a sigil on it, the necklace itself would be a talisman, or a ring, for instance. That's how I've come to understand the difference between the two. So I'm pretty sure, that basically summarizes up what it is. I'll get into some of these books here in just a second, and then I think towards the end of the video, I'll talk about some of my own personal experiences using the tools, of sigils, and how that's allowed me to form various connections with different energies, and how those energies have been able to, manifest themselves in different ways. Helped me to come to a deeper understanding of some of these archetypal forces. And it's important to remember that even though these things are considered as an external force or consciousness or awareness, it's all parts of ourselves too. We are, in a sense, the all. We're connected to the all. So all of these different aspects of source, whether they be, the more positive, the more quote unquote negative aspects of creation, we all have representations of those within ourselves. So in a sense, we have the whole universe within us, and everything is connected. So it's important to keep that in mind. It is you, essentially, the whole time. You're just coming to understand yourself, different degrees or aspects of your own inner being. So, and then it's always important to, as well, make sure you're always respecting these energies, when you're working with them. And as long as you have, you know, like a pure heart and pure intentions, and you really seek to, you know, you're not just seeking to toy around, because these are very powerful tools. You don't want to just, you know, not have a grounded foundation, and then, you know, you find out, you know, you activated all this certain energy, and then all these chaotic things start happening when you didn't really understand what you were connecting with in the first place, that aspect of yourself, or that aspect of the cosmos, you know, as above, so below, that you were attempting to, you know, work with or connect with. So that's just a word of warning. Let's go ahead and get into one of these books really quick. So this is from The Secret Teachings of All Ages, Manly P. Hall. So he's talking about healing. The third method of healing, they listed some other methods, was with the aid of talismans, charms, and amulets. Oh, and it's also interesting that talismans are, I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring lately. You add talismans, your character has talismans that give you, you know, certain effects. And you can carry, I can only carry 2 at a time. I just started a new file. But eventually over time, you'll be able to carry more of these talismans, and they give you different, you know, powers and properties. So that's just an interesting side note to add to all of this. This method of healing with the aid of talismans, charms, and amulets. The ancients believed that the planets controlled the functions of the human body. We were just talking about that, the as above, so below. And that by making charms out of different metals, they could combat the malignant influences of the various stars. Thus, a person who is anemic lacks iron. Iron was believed to be under the control of Mars. Therefore, in order to bring the influence of Mars to the sufferer, around his neck was hung a talisman made of iron and bearing upon it certain secret instructions reputed to have the power of invoking the spirit of Mars. If there was too much iron in the system, the patient was subjected to the influence of a talisman composed of the metal corresponding to some planet having an antipathy to Mars. Interesting. This influence would then offset the Mars energy and thus aid in restoring normality. So as you can see, you know, different metals, which would act as the talisman itself, and then the sigil might be drawn on it. Different metals have correspondences with different planets. And Moon Girl, I think it was, that left the original comment about doing this video. You were asking about the history of talismans, particularly angelic talismans. I'm not sure where in history, you know, that first started. You know, when it comes to ceremonial magic, I'm sure you could trace somewhere back in history, you know, exactly where it began, but the art and science of, you know, sigils and drawing those sorts of things and having those represent archetypal forces, you know, that goes back to the beginning of time. People have been using the power of symbols, you know, forever. And even, you know, we're talking, you know, before Atlantis and Lemuria, all of these sorts of things. It's an ancient art. And, you know, geometry essentially is, you know, the origin of all of this. Geometry is creation itself. The science of geometry, that's why it's so talked about, you know, in Freemasonry. It's such an important aspect of the cosmos and all of these things. So really the science of geometry is what it all goes back to, and how, you know, just certain shapes can manifest certain outcomes. So it's the science of understanding, you know, the input-output system. Essentially, it's just like magic. You put your intention, you put what you want, you know, to have happen into it, you know, whether that's after meditation, we'll talk about that in a little bit, or there's different things you can do. There's lots of different things. But let's keep continuing. So yeah, as to the actual origin, it's as ancient as time itself, really, the whole science of this. But angelic talismans specifically, I'm not sure. There is a really good YouTube video. If you type in the history of sigils, there's a guy who covers, basically what sigils are and some of their brief history, what the Latin term is for it, what it actually means. It means like signet, so like, or, signature kind of deal of these different archetypal forces or spirits, as we've said before. So I'm just going to read, the Golden Dawn, and you start getting into like Enochian magic and things of that nature, which I've just kind of started studying. I don't really know a whole lot about it, but it gets really intricate. So we're not going to get into all the intricacies of this. There's a whole chapter in the Golden Dawn. This is the complete, workings of the order. There's a whole chapter on talismans and sigils. And you could probably even find this book for free online, like a PDF or something, if you wanted to try and find that. So I'll go ahead and read the first page of this book, or of this chapter. Talismans, the formation of talismans and flashing tablets. A talisman is a magical figure charged with the force which it is intended to represent. In the construction of a talisman, care should be taken to make it, as far as is possible, so to represent the universal forces that it should be in exact harmony with those you wish to attract. And the more exact the symbolism, the more easy it is to attract the force. Other things coinciding, such as consecration at the right time, etc. So yeah, there's phases of the moon, certain days of the week or planetary hours that are good for different consecrations of sigils. But really, you don't have to do all of this stuff, although it's going to add, extra power to what it is that you're manifesting. It's always more powerful if you can construct something yourself. It's just like a Jedi, who's making his own lightsaber. A Jedi doesn't go out and get a lightsaber somewhere. He has to make his own. So it's the same with like some of the more advanced magical tools, like the rainbow wand and things of that nature. It's the same idea. But really, you could even use just an image on your phone, or you could just draw a sigil with like a crayon or something of the corresponding color on a piece of paper, and that would still work. It's still going to work, but it's going to be more effective and add more power to it if you're making it with the correct materials, you're consecrating it at the correct time, and yeah, just the more you put into it, the more you get out of it, essentially. A symbol should also be correct in its symbolism, but it is not necessarily the same as a talisman. Yeah, symbols and talismans are very similar. They kind of coincide, but they're not exactly the same. And I just read the definition, basically, of talisman in that last paragraph, according to the Golden Dawn. A flashing tablet is one made in the complementary colors. A flashing color, then, is the complementary color which, if joined to the original, enables it to attract, to a certain extent, the Akashic. They say Akashic. I've never seen it spelled that way, but I'm assuming they're talking about the Akasha. The Akashic current from the atmosphere, and to a certain extent from yourself, thus forming a vortex which can attract its flashing light from the atmosphere. Very interesting. Therefore, to make anything of this description which shall be really operative, so does it proportionally tire you. And then it goes on to list the complementary colors. The other complementaries of other mixed colors can easily be found from this scale. Coming now to the nature and method of formation of the talisman, the first thing to be remembered is that it is not always a just and right thing to form a talisman with the idea of completely changing the current of another person's karma. In any case, you could only do this in a certain sense. It will be remembered that the words of the Christ, which preceded his cures, were "Thy sins be forgiven thee," which meant that the karmic action was exhausted. Only an adept who is of the nature of a god can have the power, even if he have the right, to take upon himself the karma of another. Interesting viewpoint. That is to say that if you endeavor to change completely, I am not speaking of adapting and making the best of a person's karma, the life current, You must be of so great a force that you can take this karma from them by right of the divine power to which you have attained. Very interesting. In which case you will only do it insofar as it does not hinder their spiritual development. That is really an interesting passage right there. So yeah, if you want to continue the rest of this, this is the chapter from the Golden Dawn book, as I showed you before. Talismans, the formation of talismans, and flashing tablets. So that is the name of the chapter. Something that you had also mentioned in your the comment to Moonchild was you were talking about the seal of the 7 archangels. I did look up a little bit about that, and there's a variety of different ways you could use that sigil, really whichever way you want to, or I guess it's an entire talisman. But the thing that confused me about that sigil is that it also has Samael on there. And he's typically considered, he's one of the quote-unquote darker angels. He does have a positive polarity aspect to him as well. Has a different name, actually. They talk about it in Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic magic. But Samael being on there, it seems like a very strange mix of angels. But you could either work with one angel, specifically, or you could try to work with all of them, simultaneously if you wanted to. If you need like emotional healing, work with Gabriel. If you need more warrior, fire type energy, work with Michael, etc. There is like a 2-minute YouTube video. If you just type in Seal of the 7 Archangels, should be one of the first ones. They're kind of trying to sell it to you. So it seems like kind of like a very new agey like type YouTube channel, but it's still a little bit informative if you want to learn about the Seal of the 7 Archangels. So, okay, I think the next reference I'm going to get into is, of course, this book, Damien Eccles, Angels and Archangels. We'll read a little bit into the chapter. Let's see here. Talismans and Sigils. So we'll read a little bit about this. And I did cover some of this information already in a previous YouTube video. It actually has a lot of views. I think it has like 2,000 views. And it's about angelic sigils. So make sure you go and check out that video too if you want to learn more, about this stuff. Because I do read a little bit more from this book than I probably will today. Talismans and sigils. You can turn just about anything into a talisman. Some people get great results from putting angelic energy into candles. For example, so they use candles as much as possible in their rituals and in their lives, typically choosing colors that correspond with given angels or archangels, or maybe just using a white candle, since white contains the entire color spectrum. Other people prefer to craft talismans themselves or use more natural materials such as wood, stone, and crystal. Whatever speaks to you and seems to work. I recommend choosing a color that aligns with the angelic energy you wish to invoke. For example, red stone for protection, red being the color of the sphere of Gebura where the seraphim reside. That being said, you can even make a type of talisman out of immaterial objects such as visualizations, which is actually my preferred method. Due to their simplicity and power, I also like to use sigils. Anyone who spends more than a few minutes researching magic online will eventually come across sigils, designs that look like squiggly lines that embody abstract concepts or represent the names of divine energies. In this case, a sigil is essentially a chant of that energy's name in physical form. That's an interesting way of looking at it. And a lot of people will they'll do like automatic writing with their sigils. So they'll actually just allow the energy to come over them, and then they'll draw the geometric form that way, whichever way comes to their intuition first. So let's continue here. In this day and age, you'd be surprised at how many old books on magic have been uploaded to the internet. As I always say, there's a lot of PDFs out there. And a number of them include traditional sigils that have been used by magicians for centuries and are therefore imbued with the energy of all the people who have worked with them. For example, try a search for Archangel Michael's sigil and see how many results pop up. You can also find the original grimoires in which given sigils first publicly appeared. One of the best known known being the Grimoire of Armadale. Even if the artists or authors of those books are now unknown, any of these images can be downloaded or copied for your use. So, like getting into the lesser and greater keys of Solomon as well. There's lots of sigils in there, to work with. You can also design sigils yourself. I actually prefer this method, drawing all my own sigils when I create a talisman. One simple method for doing so involves removing all the repeating letters from a name and combining what remains into shapes. There aren't any hard and fast rules to the process. You can add and remove as you see fit, eventually landing on what appears to be a completely meaningless doodle that somehow seems right to you, and that's what you use for your sigil. The traditional method I use involves drawing a rose and placing a Hebrew letter on each petal, then translating those letters into their English language counterparts. To make a sigil, you just place a transparent piece of paper over the rose and draw lines connecting the letters that spell out the angel or archangel's name. For example, for Anael, you would begin at the petal with an A on it, and then draw a line connecting it to the letter N, and so on. If you're interested in learning more about these methods or others, I suggest Modern Magic by Donald Michael Craig. And he names another book here too. But yeah, we're actually about to jump into Modern Magic here. So yeah, there's multiple ways to, charge a sigil. You can just do your normal meditations, and then the divine energy that you've gathered, you can channel it into the sigil. Like if you're doing like a lesser invoking ritual, the pentagram or something of that nature, or the LVX, when you draw that divine light down, you can charge the sigil. You can do the same thing with like water, and different objects, and basically put your intent into them. It's all about the intent. It's more about that than the structure. There are certain structural elements, you'll want to study and stuff, but overall, there's a lot that you can do with it. It's very, very open, to interpretation. And it's really whatever works best for you. There's no, I'm not going to say there's really too much dogma when it comes to this. So yeah, this is Donald Michael Craig, Modern Magic, and I'm just going to read. He has a lot of information in here about, advanced talismanic workings, especially when you get to like Enochian magic and things of that nature. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I may be able to, I'll get to that at some point as I learn more about, these sorts of things, but that's a little bit more advanced than, the knowledge that I'm, really accustomed to. So I'm just learning in that field myself. So talismans, and let me see what chapter this is a part of. It's lesson 7. Lesson 7. Okay, I guess that's the chapter. Section 2, the inner order, lesson 7. And then in this version of the book, it's on page 252. I think this is like the 3rd edition. Something like that. Okay. Talismans. The word talisman is said to come from the Arabic words talisma, which means magic writing. Okay, I hadn't heard that one before. The video that I watched on YouTube about the history, it used a different, I think it talked about the Latin origin of the word. However, there's no proof of this. Interesting. It may come from the Turkish meaning one who is learned in divinity, a priest. According to Sandra Tabitha Cicero, talisman comes from the Arabic tilsam, which comes from the Greek telin, meaning to, or telin, meaning to consecrate, and tetelismenon, meaning that which has been consecrated. Interesting. Other sources may be from the Byzantine or Byzantine? Not sure how to pronounce that. Greek telisma, meaning a religious rite. Telin, meaning perform a religious rite, or telos, meaning completion. Interesting. Likewise, the word amulet, often used as a synchronym for talisman, so amulet, talisman, is believed to be of Arabic origin. However, Cicero traces it to the Latin amuletum, which in turn is derived from amelior, meaning to repel. That in turn may have come from the Arabic amula, a small receptacle used for healing. or hamla, a small object worn for protection. So yeah, some etymology there for you if you're interested in all that. Another source claims it may be related to the Latin amolere, meaning to avert. Again, there is no proof. No one knows exactly where either word came from. Interesting. It's kind of like the origin of tarot, you know. The origin is, like, the exact history isn't always the most important thing. It's really the effectiveness of these things and how they connect you, you know, to the energies. Today, talismans are used to draw things toward you. Their purposes include obtaining money, luck, health, or love. Amulets are used to keep things away. They protect from evil or bad luck and help keep one from ill health. In this course, talisman with a lowercase first letter will refer generically to both talismans and amulets. Talisman with a capital first letter will refer to an object used to draw something to you. Amulet with a capitalized first letter will refer to an object used specifically to keep something away. So he's just basically explaining in his book like how he's going to have those words listed in term. So far, the definitions of these terms has been very general, so let's get into a more precise definition of the term talisman from a magical point of view. A talisman is any object, sacred or profane, with or without appropriate symbols, which had been charged or consecrated by appropriate means and made to serve a specific end. Now let's analyze this definition. First, a talisman is not simply a thought or idea. It must be an object, a physical thing. Second, it can be any object. That means it could be a rock or a seashell, a finger ring, or a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be any form of sacred object, although if you had one you wanted to use, it certainly should be a sacred item. It may have words and or symbols on it, but that is not necessary. It must be instilled with magical energy, either through the process known as consecrating or through charging it. And finally, it needs to have a specific purpose. So yeah, I would just, if you want to learn more, I would research on how to consecrate talismans and how to charge them, because there's so many different methods out there. You know, it's various methods. For thousands of years, writing was a magical art. It was held in secret by the privileged classes and magicians. It was believed that certain symbols had magic power in and of themselves. This tradition has been carried even into modern movies where Count Dracula cringes in fear at the very sight of a cross. Thus, symbols placed upon a rock or piece of parchment were of themselves considered to be powerful. This is what I call the animistic theory of how talismans work. They have a life of their own. So in a way, it's kind of like an egregore, not really the same thing, but a concentration of energy, we could say it like that. Today, many magicians do not believe in this theory. Rather, they take what I call the energetics theory of how talismans work. They believe that the charging of the talisman is the important part, putting magical energy into the object chosen to be a talisman. The time taken to carefully put the proper symbols on the object is a good way to create and send energy. Mix this with the energy raised and directed during a ritual to charge the talisman, and it is no wonder that this technique of magic is powerful. Do not doubt that talismans, if properly made and charged, are powerful. Here are 3 instances of which I am personally aware. M had been divorced and was looking for a new mate for her life. She followed the instructions in this course. Within days, a man came into her life who fit virtually all of her desired characteristics in a man. They dated for a while and were married. 2 decades later, they are still happily married. Interesting. N was taking my course in the Southern California area. In the class after the one on talisman, she told me she would have to drop the class. When I asked why, she replied that she had been trying to sell her mobile home for 6 months without luck. She tried making a talisman to help her sell her house. The house sold in a few days and she had to prepare for a move. So as you can see, you know, these are very effective tools. And to go ahead and kind of like wrap this video up, what I wanted to talk about was some of my own experiences with some sigils. So I worked with Archangel Raziel's sigil quite a few times, and I explained my whole experience in one of the videos that I do on Archangel Raziel. If you go to the Archangel Raziel playlist, it should be like one of the last videos. It's going to be one of my newer videos. but the newer videos are listed last, I think, in the playlists. That's from oldest to last, or oldest to newest. But basically, that was a very profound experience. I was shown a lot of things. And, you know, the experience of working with these energies, it can be it almost like ungrounds you, or it makes you feel like your head's kind of up in the clouds a little bit. So you want to take special care, you know, make sure you're always staying hydrated, things of that nature. You're taking care of your body, and helping to stay grounded in various ways that work for you when you're working with these energies. So Archangel Raziel definitely I was shown some things, definitely about how the universe operates, and I go into detail in that video, so if you want to go check that out, definitely make sure you go and check out that video on Archangel Raziel. I can't remember what it's actually entitled, but like I said, it's one of the newer videos, or more towards the bottom of my Raziel playlist. And then I've used Archangel Raphael's sigil quite a few times, also Gabriel's, and I just feel that using the sigils, for me, it gave me a much closer energetic connection with them. I get a lot of like visuals during the process, because when you're working with a sigil, you kind of want to get your body calm, you want to be in a meditative state. And as you're working with the sigil, this is when you're trying to connect with an energy, not so much create a talisman for a specific purpose, but more for communion with a specific source of energy. So if you want to connect with Raphael, you get in your meditative state, maybe do some prerequisite, you know, workings, and then you look at the sigil, and eventually you're going to see it kind of vibrate, and then that's when the gateway or the portal is kind of opening. So you kind of empty your mind and just allow that energy to kind of, you know, enter in, make its way in. And I usually don't ask for things from, you know, entities. Like, I don't try to make wishes or anything. I just try to be with the energy and come to understand it. You know, with Archangel Raphael, just let that healing energy embody me and just try to absorb and understand what I can from the energies of that sigil as I'm connecting and kind of seeing the energies as they're working through the body. And then I also had some interesting experiences with working with Lilith's sigil. It's actually the first like darker entity I worked with, and had some very interesting experiences. So I think it was like the second time I had worked with the sigil, and I never asked for anything. I didn't like seek things from that energy. All I did is I just tried to sit with it and understand it and see if it was, you know, wanted to teach me anything. And I learned a lot about the primal feminine. I even took some notes, and I've done a lot of videos. I have a whole playlist about Lilith. And there was a night where I had a lot of trouble sleeping, and it was after I had sat and, you know, worked, just absorbed kind of the energy of the sigil. And I could feel, it was almost like, I don't know, my body was having an experience where I could just, I don't even know how to explain it. But I could just feel the energy running through my spine and running, you know, through the nervous system. And it was like, it was keeping me awake, and it wasn't like a bad experience. It was just a lot. I could feel a lot of energies, you know, working through me, and really trying to bring some more repressed stuff to the surface, some of the darker aspects of self. And then, you know, when you do that, when you're working with these energies, even if you're just, you know, sitting with and observing the energies, you're still going to pick up on some of the energies. And you have to learn how to work with the energies, see what they're trying to teach you. So it may manifest in the form of, you know, you might have to, especially with like Lilith type energy, it can be a harsher energy. So you're going to have to maybe learn how to stand up for yourself in some instances. You know, that energy is definitely not about, you know, being stepped on or anything like that. It's about understanding chaos and understanding some of the more destructive elements of reality and why they exist, and also learning to kind of become more one with that primal chaos, in a sense. And yeah, you might just have to be the balancer of energies in a certain situation where there's too much of the positive, and you, especially when it comes to like false positive energy, because there's a lot of that these days, and that kind of energy will teach you how to kind of counterbalance things. and it's going to bring up a lot of primal type energies that you might have to work with. But overall, it taught me a lot, and I do talk about it a little bit in some of my other videos if you want to check out the playlist on Lilith. But yeah, overall, these energies, they're very strong. They have a lot of things to teach you, and there's different ways you can use them. You can use them more like me, where I'm just trying to learn different archetypes of energies so I can learn more about myself. Or you can construct a sigil or a talisman to perform a certain task. And there's a whole science and art to that, which, we went over a little bit of that in these books. But if it's something that you're really wanting to learn more about, you should go and do some more research. And I just hope that this video, maybe you got something from this video. Maybe it helped you to understand, what these tools are to a little bit more of a degree, and how they can be used in very practical ways. We just saw some testimonies in modern magic about how they really helped some people. So there's a whole science to this thing, and this video is just a gateway to just kind of, show you what's possible. So I hope that I answered some of your questions. Moon Girl, I think it was, that left the original comment. I know I didn't fully answer all of those questions, or go into the nuances of everything, but at least hopefully with these references and some of this information that I shared, you'll be able to go off and, really it's a journey of self-discovery, and it's, to a degree, it's kind of, what do they say, F around and find out, mess around and find out. And that's kind of how it works. Sometimes, you just have to dive in. Just make sure you know what it is that you want to, the reason that you're doing this. So you're not just doing it just to dabble. So you're really wanting to learn and understand deeper aspects of your own self. And in that way, you can become more powerful, and you can be of better service not only to yourself, but also to the world. So, all right, everyone, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So if you like this video, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of new videos. So, all right, everyone, I will leave it at that, and peace and blessings. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and until next time, peace.